Hello everyone, Chris Whidden here, glad to be back with you. So today's video I want to talk about one of my single greatest influences and mentors as a fiddle player, going back to when I was about 13, 14 years old, and that is the incomparable, the incredible, the amazing, the wonderful Mr. Byron Berline. For those of you who are not familiar with Byron, he was born in the late 40s up on the Kansas-Oklahoma border near Caldwell, Kansas. He attended school at the University of Oklahoma on a track scholarship, and during that time he met a young group of musicians from the Ozarks area known as the Dillards, and some of y'all might remember the Dillards. They also went out to California and became the Darlings on the Andy Griffith Show. But moving on, in the late 60s, Byron spent about 7-8 months on the road with Bill Monroe, and during that time he wrote and recorded several very well-known tunes with Monroe, including the song I played at the beginning of this video, a tune called Gold Rush. He was also known for his version of Sally Gooden that he also did on a record with Bill Monroe.
Byron Berline. He's coming. He's getting old, but he's coming on out here. Byron Berline. Byron, what can you fiddle for the folks?
Well, what do we used to do? Let's see. Sally Gooden or Gold Rush? What do you want?
Sally Gooden would be fine.
You know, Bill, if I live to be 71, I hope I'm as active and as good on my instrument as you are on yours. Then I'll tell you that. We got a lot to look forward to, don't we? All the young players out there. Ready? Get ready.
Well, after about 7 months with Monroe, he was drafted into the Army there, I believe it was in 1967, and he was there in the Army from 67 to 69. After he left the Army, at the behest of the Dillards, Byron moved his family out to Los Angeles. In a very short amount of time, Byron became a very, very in-demand session fiddler there in Los Angeles, and he got to record with everyone from the Eagles, the Byrds, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Elton John, the Flying Burrito Brothers.
And I'm gonna make it home tonight.
In the mid-70s, he had the opportunity to work on a movie with the then Mr. Olympia, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that was kind of introduced him to the movie soundtrack world. So for the better part of about 20 years, anytime you heard fiddle on television or movies, most likely it was probably Byron, all through the 70s, 80s, and into the early 90s. Well, in the early 90s, when I was about 13 years old, Byron actually kind of semi-retired and moved back to Oklahoma, to Guthrie, Oklahoma, and opened the Double Stop Fiddle Shop. I made a trip up to meet him shortly after he set up shop, and it was a wonderful experience. I went up on a weekday. My aunt took me up there, and we just sat around and played fiddle tunes and visited, and he told me stories, and he had a little 175-seat music hall upstairs there in the fiddle shop, and he was telling me that they were going to have their very first jam session that following Sunday and invited me to come back up. I started going regularly to play with him, both on their shows on Friday and Saturday nights as well as the Sunday jams. For a period of time there, we were recording the shows for the KVOO radio station out of Tulsa, which was the home of Bob Wills starting back in the 1930s. He went on to found the Oklahoma International Bluegrass Festival in 1997, which was it's an amazing festival and event that's still going on today. It actually, I don't know if you notice on the here behind me on my backdrop, those posters are actually some posters from the festival over the years. I was very fortunate to be a part of the festival for the first 4 or 5 years before I moved to Austin, started touring, and I just didn't have the opportunity to break free and come back up. A few years ago, I was looking to reconnect with Byron since I had kind of returned to Oklahoma and was looking to work on a fiddle record of my own. I really wanted to get him to play on it with me. It was one of those things I'd always wanted to do, and I was actually had called and left him a couple of messages and wasn't able to get a hold of him. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize that he had been hospitalized, and a few days later I found out that he had passed away, which was very heartbreaking to me. And in the aftermath of that, I did reconnect with a lot of my friends in the bluegrass world. I learned a great deal from Byron. I learned a lot about doing studio session work from him, his consistency with how he played, and he had such power in his playing. I've never seen a fiddle player that could just pull so much sound out of a fiddle, come up with just some really, really nice, tasteful, anytime you heard him, you knew it was him. But he had just kind of a power in his playing that I have not really encountered with any other players that I've known over the years. And I try very hard. I strive for that myself in my own playing. On a good day, I feel like I can get kind of close, but there's no way that you could replicate his playing, his style of playing, and just his energy. Little by little, as a teenager, I would work more and more with Byron, and it was never like a formal thing. It would just, he'd say, well, we're having a show next Saturday night at the music hall. Are you going to come up? And I'd say, yeah, sure, I'll be here. And then, after that show, he'd say, well, we're gonna be up at Winfield week after next for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Are you going to come up there and play? I said, yeah, absolutely, I'll be there, Byron. And just kind of onwards from there. And it was incredible that he just kind of took me under his wing. And I was one of many, many people that had the opportunity to do that he was a mentor to, and including people like the members of the bluegrass band Nickel Creek, Chris Thiele, Sarah Watkins. We're all the same age, and I remember he talked quite a bit about them and how much he wanted me to meet them. And I'll never forget the first time I was at the big bluegrass festival there in Winfield, Kansas, and they were going to be there, and he kept telling me about it and talking it up. And as soon as we all got there, he introduced me to them, and then it was kind of like all kids run along and play, So we would go around trying to see how many jam sessions we could get into and with whom, and it was just a great time. And speaking of jam sessions, that was one thing that Byron was notorious for. He was the guy to bring everybody together and get everyone to jam. On the big festivals like that, with all the big bluegrass stars and people like Alison Krauss and Union Station and all those folks and Mark O'Connor and just you name it. I got to meet everybody, it seemed like, in the bluegrass world, all these great legendary artists. And usually I would meet them at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in the campground, freezing, huddled up around a big bonfire playing music. And Byron just had that sort of magnetism. He loved to jam. He loved to play. He loved to just jump on stage with people and play. And it was just wonderful to be, there in the middle of all that and right there with him. And the way he just, he would just bring you along. It was he brought everybody together, and just it was great. He was such a unifying force in that regard. There are so many stories that I could tell about Byron and things that he had shared with me that he got to do. Things like when he got to work with the Rolling Stones on the Let It Bleed album, the original more acoustic version of Honky Tonk Woman he played fiddle on, and they actually, I believe it was at Olympic Studios there in Los Angeles, just for something different, they actually set a mic up out on the sidewalk in front of the studio. And there's a famous picture, I'll put it up and show y'all, of Byron standing out on the sidewalk in the street corner, playing his fiddle into a mic, and a background singer, I'm trying to remember her name, Bramlett is her last name. Anyway, she was standing in the window smiling, watching him out there on the sidewalk, and you can hear the traffic and the horns honking and all that sort of stuff. And I remember him telling me that it was one of the most unique sessions he had walked in on. Mick Jagger and them were basically performing in the studio like they were on stage, and he said that was something, of course, he wasn't used to seeing on a session. But he said when he showed up for the session, he got there kind of early, and they were behind trying to get done whatever it was they were getting done with. And he said that Mick Jagger told him, he said, you can, you're more than welcome to take our limo and go ride around. It's going to be a couple of hours before we're ready for you. He said he went and got in the Stones limo with their driver and went and picked up Clarence White, guitar player who was a very good friend of his. And he and Clarence went and picked up some cigars and just went riding around town. And I believe he said they stopped by the Troubadour Club, and they were just just playing rock stars in the Rolling Stones limo, you know. I remember I asked him one time how that came about that he got to do that first movie project with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he said, well, it was kind of funny. He got a phone call one day at the house, and it was somebody from one of the movie studios, and they were saying that they had the then Mr. Olympia preparing to star in a movie, and his character in the movie, he was actually playing a fiddle player from South Georgia with an Austrian accent. But anyway, they told Byron, they said, we need somebody to teach him how to look like he's playing fiddle for the part. And they asked Byron what he would charge to do that, and he thought it was funny. He just laughed, and he said, well, I won't charge you anything. Just send him over to my house. So he said he gave him his address, and they set a time for it. And Arnold came over to the house, and they spent an evening together just sitting around, and he showed him some stuff, how to look like he was playing fiddle. And he said at the end of the evening before Arnold left, he told Byron that he would really like for him to come to Georgia with him for the principal shooting, and wanted him to be the musical director. Well, Byron said, you know, I have no experience with that or no formal training, and I'm sure they've already got somebody who's, you know, well qualified to fill that position hired. He said, you know, Arnold acted a little disappointed, but understood what he was saying. So they parted ways that night, and he said the next morning he got another phone call, a very anxious phone call from the studio again. They told him that Arnold had said that he would not do the movie unless Byron was the musical director on it. So they basically begged him to go ahead and come to Georgia with them and work on the project and be the actual musical director. And as a result, he and Schwarzenegger became really good friends. And Byron actually had a fiddle that Arnold had given him that he had taken and had it made where they filled the entire fiddle with lead, and it weighed about 20 pounds. So, and then I believe it was the fiddle that he actually used in the movie, and then Arnold signed it on the back. But it was just a joke, you know, about weightlifting and fiddles and such. But he ended up working on a couple other projects with Arnold down through the years, I believe. Anyway, Byron is a very big subject, and he was such a huge influence on me. I have kind of held off doing a video about him, but the reality of it is I'm sure there'll be many more videos with Byron, or he will come up in other videos probably quite frequently because, as I said, he was such a huge influence on me and such an incredible player, and I just have so many wonderful stories about the times that I got to spend with him and things I got to do and the questions I got to ask him. It was just, he was a wonderful guy and a wonderful musician. I really highly recommend, if you're not familiar with him, please go look him up. You'll probably be shocked to see what all he was actually involved in, what projects he actually worked on down through the years. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and share. And as always, if you need some studio work done, you need some fiddle tracks laid, some strings, some mandolin, anything like that, please feel free to let me know. I would love to work with you on it. And also, I'll offer fiddle and violin lessons. I am classically trained. And so if you'd like to do those, we can do them remotely and work around your schedule and make it real simple. I thank you so much for watching. Y'all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and keep on picking.